Hi, and welcome back to Lisa's Stamp Studio. My name is Lisa Curcio. The card we're going to create together today uses a beautiful detailed die. In addition to that, an embossing folder is going to be added, a very simple purple color palette. Here's a quick look at it. I'm going to give you some great tips about using this detailed die. If this is your first time visiting my YouTube channel, I would love to have you subscribe. Click the subscribe button down below, and while you're there, make sure you click that small bell icon that's next to it. That will give you notifications of when I'm live here on YouTube, as well as when I upload a new video. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's card. We're going to start by doing the die cutting. This beautiful detailed stitch lace die actually also comes with a border, and it coordinates beautifully with a little lace stamp set. Now you can buy these as a bundle and save 10%, or you can purchase them separately. I've got my Sizzix die cutting machine here. I want to give you a great tip about using this detailed die. I've tried lots of different ways, and I've had the very best success with it face up, which means the cutting edge is up and the very flat side, the smooth side, is down on top of the platform. And then I'm going to place my cardstock here, and then of course I'm going to cover that with another clear mat to protect the die, and I'm going to crank that through. Now, depending on your die cutting machine, you may have to crank or pass it through more than one time. That really just depends on the type of machine that you're using. But the next tip I want to give you is this. What I like to do before I dislodge it is I'd like to take a good look at it. What I'm looking for is to make sure that these areas, especially in the center, are die cut well. Before I go ahead and peel this, now is a great time for me to reposition it on the platform and pass it through. Turn it a quarter turn. So if it was this way first, turn it sideways. Be very careful to make sure that your die is going to pass through the width of your cutting machine, and then crank it through one more time. I'm looking, and that looks really, really good. Because of the detail, you are going to have to work a little bit to get this off, and my best tip for you is to use the die brush. The Take Your Pick tool comes with a putty tip. It also comes with a refill, and there are interchangeable pieces here that dial in. One of the attachments that I love is the die brush. It also comes with the foam pad. I've actually placed this inside a used paper pumpkin box. That's going to make it really easy to catch all the spare pieces. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the die face down on top of that pad, and then I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to go over this to get those pieces out. Anytime you've got a detailed die, it's going to require a little bit of muscle to get those small pieces out, but the die brush sure makes it easy. Once most of the pieces have been popped out, I'm just going to carefully lift this and peel it off the die itself. There still might be a few pieces that need to be poked out, and that's where my paper piercing tool attachment comes in handy. Once this has been die cut, I'm going to come in with the border die. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to align these open areas here within the largest image area here. These little scoops that are here, I don't know what else to call those, but you're going to line those up underneath that open section of the die. And I like to use one of these Post-it note tabs to help hold this in place. I'm going to anchor it to the platform and to the cardstock. And then I'll place my clear cutting mat over the top, and we will crank that through. The next step is a piece of Whisper White cardstock that I'm going to use with the beautiful tin tile embossing folder. If you're here visiting from YouTube, you're going to find all the cutting dimensions down in the video description here below. And then I'm going to pass this through my die cutting machine with the embossing plate. And I'm going to bring in a separate scrap of Whisper White cardstock. I'm using the words from that stamp set, "You Mean Everything to Me," and I've chosen to stamp those in basic gray. I didn't want to use the black because I didn't want it to be too harsh with the purple. So I'm going to go ahead and ink those up, and I'll stamp those here. I'm going to punch that greeting out using the pretty label punch. I'm going to turn my punch upside down. I'll feed the paper in through the top, and that's going to allow me to center this. I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of small grid paper here to protect my work surface, and I'm going to stamp a little bit of a border along this punched out image just to add some character to this. This image also comes from that exact same stamp set, and I've got the Highland Heather ink pad. This coordinates beautifully with the cardstock that we just die cut. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink that up. Stamp it here on the grid paper first and decide if that's too dark for you, because if it is, then you can stamp it again and decide if you'd like the lighter shade. I think I'm actually going to stamp off because I want to make it lighter, and then I'll go ahead and stamp that here near the top, and then I'll repeat that process here at the bottom. And so that my sides have a little bit of decoration to them, I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing here and on the other side as well. My next step is going to be to punch out 2 more pieces from that exact same pretty label punch. I want to border this, and I want to teach you how you can use these shape punches to create a border that goes all the way around. So I'm going to punch one here, and I'm going to punch another one here. I'm going to take my scissors, and I am going to cut one of them horizontally, and the other one I'm going to cut vertically so that I have halves in 2 different directions. For this next step, I'm going to be using my silicone craft sheet. I absolutely love this, especially when I'm working with small pieces. Adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue will not stick to it. It simply rubs right off, which makes it a great accompaniment here in the studio. It keeps my work surface nice and clean. I'm going to take this greeting and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to add adhesive here near the top. I'm going to lift this now, and I'm going to work with one of the long horizontal pieces. I'm now going to leave a small border of color around the actual punched greeting and press that in place. Then I'm going to add adhesive now on the other side, and I'm going to repeat this exact same process on this side. I'm trying to leave about the same amount of cardstock showing on this side as I did the other side. Do you see here on the ends how it's not filled in? That's what the other 2 pieces are for. So I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to add adhesive on this side, and now I'm going to border the 2 sides. I'm doing my very best to line up those scallops, and then I'll do the same thing now on this side. We're now ready to put our card together. I've got a piece of purple posy cardstock here, and this is what I'm using as the base of my card. I scored it right before you joined me, and I like to use my bone folder to help me give that nice crisp crease on my cards. I'm going to start with the tin tile embossed piece of cardstock, and that's going to get adhered near the top. I'm going to use my silicone craft sheet once again, and I'm going to add adhesive generously around the border of this. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that here near the top, leaving a slight border on the top and 2 sides. I'm going to bring back in my silicone craft sheet, and this is where I'm going to add my ribbon. So I've got about a 5-inch piece of the beautiful, gorgeous grape stripe ribbon here. And I'm going to line it here near the top, and I'm going to wrap the ends to the back side. The easiest way to do this is to use glue dots. So I've got my glue dots here. I'm actually going to start by placing one in the center. So I'm going to press that ribbon right on top of it, and then I'll lift. And then I'm going to line that here in the center of the cardstock, lining it right along the edge at the top of that die cut piece. And then I'll flip this over, and then I'm going to take the raw end of this ribbon here and place it on top of the glue dot, and that's going to get wrapped around the back side. Again, I'm looking to make sure that I keep this as close to the top as possible, and I'll do the same thing now with the other side. This piece now can get adhered here to the card. I am going to overlap them just slightly so my decorative edge is here at the bottom. The easiest way to do this is to either use a piece of tear and tape here where it will not show, make sure it's narrow enough, or use small dots of liquid glue in areas that are solid, and then you can go ahead and adhere it. It's not important that the entire thing be stuck down. I'm going to come back to my silicone craft sheet. I've turned this upside down. I've got my liquid glue here. I'm going to get it started here on my work surface, and then I'm going to use it sparingly in just sporadic areas. This glue is very strong, so you don't need a whole bunch. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this here to the top portion of my embossed piece. I'm going to turn my card upside down, and I'm going to rub from the back to burnish that glue into the paper. And then I'm going to let this sit for just under a minute so that glue can set. Now while it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and ready that greeting that we were working on. I'm going to flip that over. I'm reaching for my full-size dimensionals here. I'll use my take your pick tool with the paper piercing tool attachment. That's going to help me take off those pieces of paper on the backing of those dimensionals. This now is going to get mounted all the way here to the right hand side. Those dimensionals are also going to help anchor that ribbon in place. And then just before you joined me, I took about 8 inches of ribbon and I made a small bow, and I'm going to adhere that with a glue dot. I'm going to place the back of the bow right on the knot, and then I'll lift. And in this case, I'm actually going to place 2 because this is a pretty good size bow. And then I'm going to anchor that here off to the side and press that in place. I have several other samples for you that are in a different color, and I want to share those with you now. But isn't this pretty? This one's made with pretty peacock cardstock and Pool Party, and I just used some of that real pretty linen ribbon. This one's made in Coastal Cabana and Pool Party. Which one of these is your favorite? I would love to know. Leave me a comment below. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up here on YouTube, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.